Huge news for Age of Wonders 4 fans today as the team behind the game, Triumph Studios, has revealed information about the upcoming Dragon Dawn DLC, the first free game update for Age of Wonders 4, that's the Wyvern patch update, and the many interesting changes, actually, that are coming along with that, including game balance, and of course, they're reflecting on the launch more broadly. Now that our YouTube housekeeping is well and truly out of the way, and we're introduced to what we're talking about, let's jump straight in. In the first section here, they sort of quickly reflect on the launch, which, as you may remember if you're a regular viewer of the channel, was a little bit rocky, particularly just in those first few sort of early hours or days around stability of the game for the most part. They start by saying it's the fastest selling edition in the Age of Wonders series, selling 250,000 units on day 4 of the release. They also acknowledge what I mentioned earlier, that the launch was a little bit of a roller coaster. Early reviews were a little negative, and that was largely because people were unable to launch the game after purchasing it. Thankfully, of course, those reviews lifted up in their score, and they, of course, go on to say that they've released a number of small patches, nothing changing gameplay, unlike the one we're looking at today, which certainly does, but a variety of patches over the last few weeks to improve stability and performance. Looking at the game a little more broadly, they go on to say that actually, as a whole, they're really happy with how the community has perceived, received, and experienced Age of Wonders 4. And I think that many of you in the comments will probably agree with most of this sentiment. Faction creation and evolution, all the new systems have been generally widely embraced by fans and appealed to a new audience. Of course, they've had feedback and criticisms from a subsection of the fan base, they say, that preferred a more traditional approach, specifically to factions. In future updates, they're going to keep investing in faction content, allowing for more distinction in gameplay and growing the possible number of fantasies, i.e. more factions, more races, more customization is of course on the way. They also quickly touch on modding. There are 285 mods at the time of writing, and from my personal experience with testing out a few of the mods and making some videos on them, I can say they're really good. Yeah. Totally agree. Modding is a match made in heaven, in my opinion anyway, for Age of Wonders 4. And finally, they sort of round off this section by saying, the game looks very healthy. It's had a very healthy start. We're looking forward to expanding it in the future, which of course we're about to talk about. And all of that will come with DLCs, patches, and updates. Let's move through to that now then. So the meat of this developer's diary, this fantastic update, is the Wyvern patch update and Dragon Dawn, the first DLC. The Dragon Dawn content pack and what they call the massive free Wyvern update that accompanies it are nearly complete. They can say already that the date, get this, may be closer than you think. They're on target to make it the fastest DLC major patch release after launch for any Age of Wonders game. There's quite a bit to unpack there, but the message at the highest level is that alongside the first DLC, Dragon Dawn, there'll be a big free patch update, and all of it is coming quicker than you might think. Taking a quick step back, of course, just in case you're unfamiliar, Age of Wonders 4 does have the expansion pass. You can check out its page on Steam, and on the page, they basically detail and lay out the 4 upcoming DLC packs that they've already scheduled. The first one, of course, is Dragon Dawn, the focus of this video, because it's releasing in Q3 of 2023, i.e. this quarter. Now, at the time of me recording this video anyway. At a standalone price of $9.99, the pack is of course about dragons from a dragon throne. We're encouraged to forge empires inhabited by reptilian minions, and of course they're a focus, a new sort of a race type, if you will. And use draconic magic to evolve people into dragon hybrids. We'll have dragon rulers, reptilian forms, and new tomes, and all of that comes in at $10 US if you don't have the expansion pass already. Unpacking the sort of hint that this is going to be coming soon and that we should expect it sooner rather than later got me sort of quickly looking across Steam, and I noticed that Age of Wonders Planetfall released on the 7th of August 2019, and then on the 20th of November, so September, October, November, around 3 months later, Planetfall Revelations came out. So they've indicated it'll be faster than that. Of course, we know it's going to be this quarter. And of course, that runs June, July, August. Now, the game released at the very start of May, so we've already had 1 month. 1 more month would put them at the end of June, and that would be 2 months since it released. They've confirmed it'll be faster than 3, so my bet would be around there. Now, they don't give us a lot more information about Dragon Dawn other than sort of the screenshots, the descriptions, and the fact that it's coming soon. But we do hear about the Wyvern update, the massive free patch update. It will be the first major update for Age of Wonders 4, most likely. Apparently, it has over 10 pages of patch notes, but we don't have to read through all of that today. Don't worry, relax. We're just going to look at some provisional highlights instead. Starting with faction creation. In the Wyvern update, they've added a create faction button, which takes us directly into the faction creation flow. You can create a new faction from the ground up, edit an existing one, or generate a random ruler. Nice, using the new random ruler feature. That is a fantastic way to add some diversity in without having to sit down and manually make a load of factions. Not that that isn't fun, because it is. Nice to have an ability to speed it up, though. They also note that they've added 2 new traits, one for the body and one for social traits. Interesting. It's just 1 each, but I'll be fascinated to see what yield they've chosen to use. What are they adding in here, I wonder? Also nice to have, of course, that the main point here is that we can build factions and edit them outside of actually starting a new game, so you don't have to go through and pick your realm and do all of this nonsense. Nice to see. The Empire development tree is also in the firing line. The Empire development tree has been, quote, rebalanced, end quote. Early skills now require more accumulated affinity. To unpack that a little bit, that's, of course, the points that tick up as you move through turns. So if I have 6 nature affinity, thanks to my tomes of magic or whatever, then I'll tick that rate up by 6 per turn. And of course, you need to reach a certain amount of accumulated affinity to unlock those development tree perks. They'll also have an increased Imperium cost, so you'll need more of a specific affinity or to wait longer, and they'll be more expensive. Those early skills, it seems, significantly nerfed, at least in terms of their cost. And that'll impact the early game quite a bit, actually, because a lot of those things are quite powerful, quite early. Some skills have been moved earlier or later in the tree as well, so we're seeing some repositioning, and some are replaced with entirely new skills altogether. Kind of exciting, actually. Interested to see what they want to do here. They've also addressed several issues within the tree, and 3 to note: wild expansion. Kind of interesting. Reduced chance of summoning a greater animal, down from 60% to 20%. And also fixed a bug where it triggered on annexing Ancient Wonders or swapping provinces. But the crucial thing there is summon greater animal, a great summoning spell, has been significantly nerfed. From a 60% chance to summon a tier 2, down to a 20% chance. Military engineering is up next. It now grants a work camp instead of walls. Outpost cost reduction is reduced from 50% to 25%. So this is the very first Materium perk. It used to mean that you could build your outposts 50% faster. They've slashed that in half, that bonus. It's now down to 25%. That's their cost, I should say. And they've also made it that it'll grant a work camp instead of walls, and that is OP. Love that. That's a great bonus and worth the downside. The work camp, of course, lets you claim an extra territory. The walls give you vision. The defense, they're fine, but getting that work camp online fast for the extra territory, very good, especially if you're trying to grab wonders or plants or whatever. And finally, knowledge extraction has been changed. It's been changed from 50 knowledge per hero level to 150. That was the early one, I believe, in Shadow. Every time you destroyed an enemy hero, you got knowledge per hero. That has now changed per hero level by a 3x, actually, up to 150. Nice. Souls are also a focus of this update, with the soul economy itself being rebalanced. Generally speaking, across the board buffs to those more shadowy, dark empires. Of course, Necromancy is the focus. All Necromancy tomes have changed their harvest income from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 per hero level to 2 through 6, and 6 for each hero. So basically +1 at every stage. Tome of Souls, they've replaced Soulbind Army, Sustained World Spell, Soul Collection, +6 soul income, and 30 gold upkeep. The +6 soul income out of that Soul Collection, very good. It'll be interesting to see, though, the impacts of not having that Soulbind Army early. There are other ways to generate that effect, but it was a really powerful spell quite early to harvest a lot of souls. However, I think with a Sustained World Spell Soul Collection, it's obviously going to be a more reliable way to generate souls at the cost of $30. Soul Fire was also changed from 10 souls to 10 mana, so you don't need to spend as many of them. Necromancy, they've reduced the Necromancer soul cost from 50 souls to 70 gold and 25. So again, we're seeing them shift the cost away from souls and towards other resources like mana or gold. And finally, at the tier 3, the Tome of Great Transformation, where we have that awesome race transformation spell, the Whiteborn. It's been changed a little bit from 200 souls to 300 mana and 100 souls. So again, this one will just be easier to cast with a slight, of course, considerable extra mana cost. Hey, Triumph, there aren't enough mounted units is apparently a common criticism. On Cavalry and mounted units, they've heard us loud and clear. We want more mounted units, so they've put several units on top of horses, wolves and boars. I don't know why I find that funny. Oh, you guys want mounts? Fine. Here's a whole load of horses and wolves underneath your units, and now they're mounted. How do you like that? I mean, there's literally nothing wrong with it. I don't know why that threw me for 6. The Mystic Spellbreaker, Houndmaster, and Wildspeaker units are permanently mounted, and the Dark Pursuer, High Dawn Defender Glade Runner will get mounts when paired with an exotic mount trait, as you might expect. These units will also be more easily recognized thanks to the optional Cavalry tag inside of that encyclopedia, a wonderful place for Age of Wonders 4 knowledge. And we have some quick highlights before we move through to look at this sort of concluding mark. What's next? What about the future? Some quality of life improvements. You can disable that combat action camera from moving around and sometimes awkwardly cutting off what you're trying to see. Give full control to the player. Should help with accessibility. Absolutely, it should. The show location button should now indicate way better where the corresponding event location resides. Could have been a little sketchy prior. Status effects are now displayed in the unit abilities panel. This is massive because really up until now you had to get a mod to have the information displayed where you needed it. Inside of the unit abilities panel makes perfect sense. Here you'll see the number of stacks, the duration of the effect, and they also include tooltips, so you don't have to enter the panel anymore to determine what the effect actually does. Having the status effect information more transparent is a great move. If you attack an underground passage, the reinforcement rule's now disabled, so it's always a 1v1. That's nice, tactically, to block off those passages. They've also added a next and previous button to the hero screen, and buttons for cycling through cities are now in a fixed position. And of course, any good patch update wouldn't be complete without some fixes. There are a variety of ones here. Of course, they're not giving us the full patch notes, just the key ones, right? So it's things like they fixed an issue where vassals that were player cities would not send armies to attack, spawned patrolling stacks. Super important. As we move through the list a little bit, there'll be different ones that will speak out to different people here, of course. I won't go through them all, but nice to see that events are now being moddable as well. And also spiderwebs are going to be less OP. There was a bug where they were dealing double damage. No more. And now the road ahead. They say that they understand that players want to get their hands on fixes and updates as soon as possible, but they kindly ask for a little more patience as they verify the fixes. You need to be more patient. Our plan is to roll out these things on all platforms simultaneously, they say. So great news for our console brothers and sisters out there who may, in some other franchises, potentially not see the updates roll out very quickly at all. Here's looking at you, Civilization 6, and finally off to the road ahead. They are just at the beginning of Age of Wonders 4, they say, and they look forward to expanding and improving the game longer than they have done for any other game in their history. Nice to hear that. Personally, I'm quite a fan of Age of Wonders 4, in case you haven't gathered. Nice to see it'll be getting some support for a while moving forward. And our feedback, of course, will be a major driving factor, and they give you loads of ways to give it, from forums, Discord, Twitter, Facebook, if your mums wants to give feedback, and Instagram and YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me today for this spicy, if not a little sassy, apologies about that, update to Age of Wonders 4. It's huge news across the board, with a massive patch update on the way, and what looks like a very fast release for the Dragon DLC. Of course, I'll be sure to update you as we hear more. Thank you so much for joining me today, everybody. I'll see you next time.